The stories and legends of Garos are full of divine beings and spirits having a lot of heroic battles, fights, conflict, love, relationship, war, unimaginable moments, and even curse and so on. The Garos, as we're about to hear their stories, are a tribals residing throughout northeast India and are especially found in a western region of Meghalaya called Garo Hills. They had a strong oral tradition in which they passed down both verbally and in oral form through generation. Though they're rich in culture and tradition, their stories and legends are not as popular as it were once. As time passes, their lack of preserving the stories and legends among the modernized people is the beginning or the sign of slowly dying tradition and culture. And out of all the stories and legends of Garos, the most well-known story to this day is the story of mighty Goera, the god of thunder. Now, before we began his story, let us hear the history of Garos. The Garos, as we dive deep into it, had a strong orally kept history that their ancestors, a batch of Garo forefathers and foremothers, migrated from the regions of Tibet, which they call Assam Kuchot, mountains of Piljongsa. In short, they commonly referred it as Tibeto-Burman, meaning Tibet. From there, 1 out of 5 Garo groups migrated and settled in the vicinity of the Balpakram in South Garo Hills, which they named as Bindengu, Romchingkol, Takru Malakau upon settling. During their settlement in Balpakram region, Garos befriended and formed a deep relationship between gods and goddesses of the upper regions. The result of all these was that the half of the population among the Garos back in those early days was that they were demigods, that is, half human and half divine or half supernatural beings, and their physical stature grew to a gigantic proportion, often reaching 25 or 30 cubits in height, and their chests measured 6 or 7 cubits in breadth, whereas the other half of the population remained pure human beings. And to this day, the giant footprints of the mentioned gods, goddesses, and demigods are still found everywhere in South Garo Hills, leaving a mark of evidence to the Garos that their ancestors were once giants and divine beings. Those times there were free intercourse between gods and goddesses of the upper regions and human beings of the lower. They live alongside Garos and married them. These gods, goddesses, and demigods, according to their respective virtues and vices, some of them for some reason had been destined to live and die like ordinary mortals, while others attained to eternal glory and immortality. Now, as we have heard their history about Garos, which are based on tradition, let us now hear the story of Goera, the god of thunder. His story began when Garos formed a community of demigods and goddesses. Among this community was a man named Misi Saljong, also known as Misi Saljong in short. Though he is honored and worshipped as god of agriculture by mortals since ages, he was no more than a demigod and was one of the strongest beings of that time. He was married to a demigoddess named Sume Dilme and had a daughter named Nodoe Notakki, who would soon be a mother of Goera. She was also a demigoddess who grew up to be the most beautiful and most energetic woman of the time. Her true name was Kabu Ranch by birth, but later she was renamed as Nodoe Notakki. Matrilineally, she belonged to Rongbang Mahari, or a clan. She was married to a mighty mortal man named Dumaram Dutcharong with all the dignity and had 5 daughters with him, namely Sikmeja Dulmeja the oldest, Anameja Ginameja the second, Majakchi Kasindik the third, Nasekja Nabalja the fourth, and Nirasanjeja the fifth. Nodoe Notakki's husband Dumaram Dutcharong, however, died suddenly of an emaciating illness, with which he was attacked while clearing jungle for jung cultivation at a place known as Misini Jakrimra Saljongni Rudokra by his own father-in-law, a demigod Misi Saljong, who had slain him with his yellow rod of malady for clearing the virgin forest at the place to which he went frequent. Nodoe Notakki, after the premature death of her husband, was asked by her maternal uncle Misi Chipimpa for marriage, and thus marrying his own uncle without knowing who he is. Her uncle and Nodoe had committed the sin of incest, which was one of the greatest social sin or marang of the time, according to the Garo social code. Now, the circumstances under which Goera was born were peculiarly strange. The period of gestation lasted for 7 years, which is full 7 summers and full 7 winters. When Goera was still in Nodoe Notakki's womb, Bisikram Bidhatore, the divine goddess, mother of Misi Saljong and the grandmother of Nodoe Notakki, foretold that the child of Nodoe Notakki after birth would grow up to be the strongest being in the world. Wanawanga, the patriarchal head of the tiger family, upon hearing the prophecy of Goera, got excited with extreme jealousy and wanted to kill the mother and an unborn child. But Bisikram Bidhatore advised him to throw away his murderous scheme and asked him to wait until the baby became a man and see if he could match his strength. While Nodoe Notakki was still carrying Goera, Wanawanga devoured one of Nodoe's maidservant named Chelsha Mishik while she was out filling water from the stream, and it happened all because Wanawanga had uncontrollable hatred and jealousy towards Goera.